and I will be recording this. Sorry about that. But yeah, feel free to introduce yourself. We have Tyler from SI Testing and Dawn from Kings 3 Emergency Communication.
Hello there. My name is Tyler Sencock. I'm with SI Testing. So we're an electrical service contractor in Southern and Northern California. So I've been doing this for about 17 years, well versed in medium to high voltage to commercial to residential, and here to pretty much explain NFPA 70B to simplify it for you guys and your property.
And I'm Don Holloway with Kings 3 Communications. I am their Chief Manager of Field Services. Been in the elevator trade 20 plus years. We'll stick at those good numbers. And I currently hold around 39 different licenses, including licenses in the state of California, as well as sit on the ASME Code Committee for Electrical. So hopefully kind of give you some good bits and pieces here that maybe you didn't know about.
Okay, and then we will have some time for questions at the end of the session, but if you guys do have questions throughout the presentation, feel free to drop them in the chat, and we'll go through them once we have the time for it. And I believe, Tyler, did you want to share your screen?
Yes.
There you go.
Perfect. Well, hello again, everybody. Today's topic is going to be the biggest NFPA 70B compliance. I know there's been a lot of updates and recommendations that have changed to mandates, so I'm just here to help navigate with you guys to simplify it so you can apply this to your guys' properties. Next. She's not going. Oh. There we go. Sorry, my laptop just froze. Okay, so compliance is more than passing an inspection. Its standards are necessary to protect your operations and those who manage it. Biggest thing is evaluating your electrical maintenance plan is higher than ever these days. I know a lot of insurance agencies have been reaching out because NFPA 70B had a new update from the past several years. It's just been recommendations, but due to recent electrical failures due to age or fires due to lack of maintenance, they've been getting a little more aggressive with it. So this is going to go in compliance with the NFPA electrical cycle safety units of 70E, B, and E standards. And this is also going to be helpful to get all these documentations for you guys as the insurance companies are starting to require this more often. Compliance is achieved through a single standard. It is the result of continuous process incorporation of electrical systems design, installation, maintenance, and age assessment. Biggest thing is this is huge for ownership because it shows that they are on top of their electrical equipment. So when there is a potential fault or there's predictions of faults, we can catch that early on and be able to rectify that, repair it, and replace it before it became an actual emergency repair. Electrical systems deteriorate over time. Small changes occur often unnoticed until a failure occurs. NFPA compliance is designed to identify these issues before they become hazards. Biggest ones of recent, I would say, we have been experiencing arc flash incidents, electrical fires, protective equipment failures, and a lot of insurance and liability exposures. And good practices of being on top of your NFPA 70B compliance is I have an example of a recent client had a 4,000 amp system explode due to water penetration in it. And the insurance came back to them trying to flip it on them for lack of maintenance, but they had a track record of 10 years of being on top of their services and studies. NFPA 70B enforces the implementation of electrical maintenance plan that will increase the effectiveness of the 70E standard for electrical safety in the workplace. Highlights of this is it keeps your equipment running longer lifespans on the equipment. The reliability is higher. Reduce of emergency repairs is impeccable, and increasing productive uptime as some of these emergency jobs can have severe downtime to get the repairs completed. NFPA 70B states that the electrical maintenance plan shall include the following: an electrical safety program that addresses condition of maintenance. A lot of that can be found and assessed through previous testing documentations you might have at your facilities, or if you did a current infrared inspection. A lot of infrared inspections we provide, we give you a full assessment of the property and location of what's current, due, and past due. Another one is a survey analysis of electrical equipment systems determining the maintenance requirement and priorities. That can vary and range based off of location, what kind of tenant you have in your property, how critical the equipment may be. All those vary, and those are assessments that can be made through your infra inspection with that. And a program to review revision process to consider failure findings for continuous improvement. That falls through your maintenance plan with 70B. As you start to begin the testing and you get around to your second and third cycle, a lot of trending can become with the hard data stating that potential fail points in the near future, where you can budget out accordingly to get those repaired. It can be difficult to know where you stand with compliance if you already don't have a maintenance plan in place, and we do break that down into 3 phases that include the following. Scheduling your inspection is the big one for infrared. Preventative maintenance, that's usually the ground fault testing, and equipment testing would be anything downstream of that. The biggest, I think, overlooked point is documentation. A lot of times this testing can be completed, but if you don't have the documentation that backs it, it could potentially become an issue with electrical explosions and insurance claims. The more information you have about your system, the better equipped you will be to correct, maintain, and improve it. So during this phase, it is best practice for you guys to assess currently visually going into your rooms, assessing the equipment. Does it look like there might be a potential hazard with it? This is the goal of just getting a baseline to understand the health of your system and integrity, to see if there's any pressing items that need to be addressed accordingly. So conducting a detailed visual inspection of all major, which I just highlighted earlier, that's going into your main electrical room, checking to see if the covers are good, if they're sealed correctly, is there water in there, is there condensation potentially in the room, is it overheating? So doing those inspections, also checking to see if there's a potential arc flash, seeing any black smoke coming out of the gear. That could be concerning to see if there's some underlying issue underneath that cover. Identifying sign of aging, the overheating, those are the biggest items that get overlooked, just to make sure that you're being on top of your equipment. So if there is a potential failure in the near future, we can get on that pretty early on, as a lot of these emergency jobs that come from this oversight, manufacturing has been about pretty 12 to 36 months on getting some of this equipment brand new. The visual inspection alone rarely catches electrical issues. Electrical testing providing valuable data, the condition and performance of critical equipment, identifying issues long before they turn into failure and safety incidents. So these are the practices where we get into, now you're using our expertise and our abilities to come in and assess with some testing and getting actual hard data, so we can get a program set in place to get the maintenance up to date. Biggest one is the infrared. We like to highlight. So infrared thermography. So when we come into your location, we give just like the dealership with the maintenance program, is a 120-point inspection. So you'll get a full high level of assessment of what's current, what's going to be due, and what's been past due. So after that has been assessed, then we go through the report with you and prioritizing your testing. What items, if it's everything has been, say, past due, everything's past due, we want to prioritize what's going to be critical to get done now, next year, and the years to come, so you guys can budget that out. This other one that's high level is arc flash shock risk assessment. So that is your arc flash study. So if you don't have currently a study at your facility, this is something to be able to put in on your equipment to identify the actual arc flash hazard per piece of equipment, which pulls now liability off of the ownership and management, because you've identified the danger hazard and only qualified personnel are allowed in that piece of equipment. Following the testing results are analyzed and reported to prioritize repairs and safety of operations. So after every testing, we want to categorize from high, medium to low priority, so you know what is critical to get addressed right now and what's something to just be mindful that you need to probably address in the near future or a couple of years ahead. For electrical equipment, a 70B outlines 3 categories for identifying the equipment condition for the frequency of maintenance required. Condition 1 is the appears like new condition. That can apply to a lot of your facilities. I know we're pretty much at a place life expectancy has exceeded 30 years. but a lot of equipment can be still in very good condition. The enclosure is clean, free from moisture intrusion and tightness. That's another one to be mindful of and making sure that it's maintained. There's no active recommendation of protective techniques, and preventive maintenance has been performed according to the electrical maintenance plan. Condition 2 is the maintenance results deviate from past results, having indicated more frequent maintenance in accordance with manufacturing published data. So NFPA 70B covers a high level of standardizing the maintenance, but certain manufacturing, they know their equipment better than NFPA. So they have slight variations and recommendations of what it should be tested, how frequently, and that stuff we would provide for you guys so you can have a better understanding and we could be more practical with everything. And then the previous maintenance cycle has revealed issues that require repair and replacement of major equipment components. That's another high level one to be on top of. So when you're doing your active maintenance cycles, you're able to identify critical equipment that has serious lead times, where you can budget accordingly and get that order before it actually does fail. And then condition 3, the biggest one I've been walking into as of lately is seeing equipment missing its maintenance cycle consecutively, averaging about 2 to 3 cycles. So if that's something that happens at your facility, we want to highlight that as a high priority so you can get up to date, so we can get a great standard on it to find out where you stand with compliance and testing. There is an urgent action identified from protective. So if anything that seems urgent that comes up, we want to bring it to your attention right off the bat after we review the reporting so that you guys have a good understanding and we can move forward by just being planned accordingly. So here is just an example of conditions 1, 2, and 3 of, I'd say, prioritizing with location. So condition 1, this is the variation of how much maintenance, how frequently it should be done. That falls in line with, I'd say, residential, just high-rise residential apartments. That's more of like not as critical. Condition 2, a lot of you will fall in line with that, and that is the standard for commercial high rises, tilt up, and retail. And then condition 3 for variations is more of a manufacturing. So they're consuming a lot more power usage, and there's a lot of more moving parts. So frequent variations of testing is done pretty much yearly just to make sure everything is good in an operating fashion. So an electrical maintenance program, this is continuing turn isolated inspection into a proactive strategy that protects employees, equipment, and operation year to year. So this phase establishes a culture of continuous improvement and enhances systems reliability while helping to reduce costly repairs and overall risk. Phase 3, scheduling preventive maintenance based on NFPA standards and manufacturing recommendations. That's what I talked a little bit earlier on. You want to go off the standard, but also your manufacturing equipment to see what they recommend for testing so we can be in alignment to be the most practical. The routine inspection, recurring equipment testing, the inspections fall underneath your infrared, and then your 3-year, your annual testing, and your 5-year. And then another one is regularly keeping up to date your arc flash studies, single line diagrams, and equipment labeling. A lot of times you got tenants moving in and TI happens, and say you did your arc flash study 5 years ago, it's due for a revisit. A lot of these TI contractors, they just tend to put whatever works in there and gets the tenant power, but it actually could derate your arc flash study. So we want to catch that and be mindful, and also make sure your single lines are up to date if equipment has been added to your system. And that is pretty quick. I went really fast, but I kind of wanted to go pretty quick because I figured we're going to have a lot of questions. Jesse, you want me to stop sharing my screen?
Yes, I was just about to ask. That was perfect.
Okay.
And then, yes, we will have time for questions after. I know I saw a couple in the chat, so we'll go back and go over those towards the end. Dawn, if you wanted to share your screen and get started on your half of the presentation.
Absolutely.
You all set? Perfect.
All righty. All righty, everybody. I appreciate you coming and appreciate inviting us here. Going to kind of go over a little bit here about your future proofing, your telephony, the phone requirements for elevator emergency communication. As talked before, many of you, it's just like what Tyler was talking about. It's some of the unseen things you see behind the scenes that can really come to bear on you when it's important that those things work and operate properly. Going into it, like I said, I'm the chief manager of field service with the Kings 3. Kind of leave these in there to let everybody know who we are and what we do. As you know, many of you do use our equipment and everything through. We do anything from emergency phones, help phones, pull phones, and elevator phones. That's where we kind of get the full gambit of experience that we kind of get into what we're talking about here. What we're going to do for this overview is we're going to start talking about the changes in the telecom industry. We're going to do the elevator options and then recommended minimum standards. Now, what's happening with POTS? As everybody know, the old standard landline, what everybody's calling copper line. What's happened to a lot of those? Back in August of 2019, the FCC order 10-72A1 was brought out. And what this did, it order permits telecom companies to no longer support traditional phone lines and does not prohibit the use of POTS line, but it increased the impact. And what that basically gave them the ability to also increase pricing. If one of your line fails, they are not responsible for having to actually maintain that line. They can offer you alternatives on some of these locations, or the price may change from where it used to be $70 to $100 to $800 and $900 as far as some of the highest prices we've seen for some of these locations. So you take that in a large footprint building, 20 to 40 elevators, and some if they were previously charging those per line, you've got a large expense that's in there for it. What does this mean now? Deteriorating services, new technologies making landlines obsolete for you. Delays in installation and service. Large telecom companies just no longer support or train on the old technology. Difficulties in purchasing new landlines varies by location, but customers Delta, data shows an average about $125 per line, and then price increase to maintain infrastructure. As you notice, what we're seeing on some of these locations, new property buildings. I don't know how many of you are in the construction phase of your properties, but I've had a lot of companies that's coming to us and said, hey, look, we can't get a phone line. They can't get a phone line to us for 3 to 6 months. And it's a very hard thing for them to do for the emergency communication, because as you know, you've got to have the phone in the elevator to get it to work. So those are some of the things that this affects under those guidelines. So advancements due to code updates, hardware, elevator phone, video camera, text display, internet connection. I'm going to give a high level view on these due to the time and the time constraints of it. Don't go too deep into the code to try and get some of the high level stuff out to you here. The software side, you've got to look at the video feed access from the hardware manufacturer and the messaging platform. As you know now, with the adoption of the 2019 code, it incorporated video and texting in the elevators themselves. That's a new parameter that many people just haven't made the preparations for. Monitoring, authorized personnel need to be able to review that video feed and send yes and no questions during that process. The ASME 2019 code connection requirements, phone line operation, POTS being retired, voice over IP, typically not compliant. It depends on the type. We'll go into some of that here shortly. And then cellular recommended. It's some of the new things we're coming out, whether it's cellular data, cellular landline, network options, the VLAN style, cellular data, and even QoS. These things are generally like your all's facilities and things that you deal with. Some of them have a stronger infrastructure, but then when you start stepping that down to some of these new smaller providers or smaller areas, they're not as reliable for many different reasons we're going to kind of touch base on. Some of the phone line options that we're trying to get into these things for you are the voice over IP, digital, fiber, and then cellular. Kind of lay out some of the options of what the looks of how the building systems look at it. And with you all being in the facilities manner, what this does is we're trying to get in that area to say what affects you, what are you looking at when you look at these items. Advantages, Voice over IP, digital and fiber, cost efficient, call quality is good, ease of setup, and then flexibility. Some of the disadvantages can be some of these voice over IPs, especially smaller versions, have inconsistent DTMF, dual tone, multi-frequency. Think of it as breaking it down simply as just the tone you hear when you press a button. If that tone's not coming through clear, it may not be giving that communication into it properly. If it's sending data bursts, is it got enough strong signal to complete that data burst, however long that it is? Router configurations determines that it has to be very well maintained by properties. Power outages. Think of it, if there's many people in here, how many people nowadays have a phone line in their house from their cellular modem or from their fiber modem? Probably a lot of us, and most of us don't even use it. But if you do, and you're sitting here working on here with Zoom or anything else like we always do, you have an outage, your internet's really slow, you call them for service, what's the very first thing they ask you? Well, have you unplugged the power, let it sit for 2 minutes, and then plug it back in? That's great. That's a great way to reset your modem. But if that modem is feeding your emergency phone and you unplug that modem, it's dead. It has no phone line. So that's where the power outages come into play. The code, the 2.27 of the ASME code, actually requires that you must have 4 hours talk time while you're on the phone. It has 4 hours battery backup to make sure that there's communication for power outages or emergencies for those elevators, and potential security threats. As we all know, we all carry our cell phones in our hand and everything else. We're getting spam calls and robot calls and all this stuff. Without the same type of security for your emergency phones and your actual elevators, you've got the same potentiality for that to happen for everybody as well. Going into the cellular, what is cellular? Known, it's the basic breakdown. I put some of these for people that didn't really know with it. It's your basic cellular network, the convergent technology, cellular version network capable of complex two-way radio. It's the simplest thing that's out there. Y2 cellular, if you look at some of these systems, some of the systems actually have a cellular, not only eliminates analog dependency, but it's a faster connection to dispatch compared to POTS and VoIP. A lot less delay time and lag for it. Not a wireless solution, but typically circumvents local wiring infrastructures. The cellular option gives you ability to not have to be restricted to an internal line run. It can be located in convenience and maintain that signal in one locked location. So it gives the freedom of footprint to where normally you have one centralized phone room at the basement level and your elevators at the top roof of your building. If that connection between there goes bad, or if you have to run that complicated wiring run up the hoistway or internal riser setup, then cellular can be located wherever it would be for the ease of use. So that is a definite help on there for you all. Power backup, again, 4-hour battery backup for emergency communication for power outages. Communication failure alert. We also look at the communication failure alert is if you're in your elevator, you go up to the first floor, you see a little star on it. That's your main floor. That's what's called the point of egress. Out inside of the hall call, which is the actual button you press, usually you'll see a fire jewel or a fire key switch. Inside of there should be a button that says emergency communication failure and a speaker, or basically just a buzzer. And that actually notifies someone if the phone line inside the elevator is not working. Small functionality that helps out for the riding public. Caller identification, cellular technology can be used to provide the signal while the elevator is programmed to identify its location without aid from the caller. Part of that process is when you call into an emergency phone for an elevator, the elevator itself, the system must identify the location, address, and which elevator they're in. Think of it if somebody hits it, they're in a medical emergency, or it's a child, or someone that can't speak or hear anything that's going on, so they're not going to be able to communicate with you. Then they need to know where they're at, who's in there, and what elevator they're in. That's for the emergency communication portion. For that fact, it's a piece of equipment. The speaker could be out, the microphone could be out. So that's where the redundancies of making sure that system itself without assistance from the person inside of the car to be able to tell them where they're at. That's very important. Phone line requirements for cellular. Do the elevators still need a phone line when using a cellular? The phone line is not required for cellular connection. However, we use the wiring necessary to connect the cellular signal back to the elevator cab. Still use the infrastructure. We use the existing infrastructure wire to hook our cellular to the tail end of where your info room is, or your telephone room, network room, wherever that is. That's how that system works for an elevator. For emergency phones to work, they must have priority access to two-way communication, POTS or cellular connection. This does not mean a dedicated communication phone path, such as you have to have one of the great myths out there is always you've got to have a dedicated phone line for every elevator. It's clearly pointed in the code in different locations for that is not the case, as well as in the A17.1 and the A17.2. The inspector's guide has it very clearly written out for you all. Smart consolidation technologies enable multiple equipped emergency phones to be used with one line, but operate simultaneously are required if an emergency setup that the setup to share its communication path with other devices. So with the consolidation technology nowadays, whether it's King Street, it could be RAS Systems or anybody else's that's out there, Wertec, any brand that has a consolidation system. If one line comes in, it separates the phone line usage to where each actual elevator can operate simultaneously with one line. And that's only with the consolidation system, not with sharing a phone line for individual elevators, because each elevator activation will take priority unless it has the capability for the consolidation. Testing elevator phones. With testing elevator phones, how you basically do this is you activate at least two elevator phones approximately at the same time. If you've got a bank, you can test your main elevator, test to see if it's operational, but also test two at a time. What happens if you have a power outage and everybody gets locked in? Test it in the scenarios which it should work. Make sure that the system functions as it should. From each elevator, ask the operator to identify your location and cab number. Ask them, where am I at? And what elevator I'm in. If they can't tell you that, then that phone's not compliant. It's just a plain and simple fact. I look at that back carrying. I carry my inspector's license. I've had it since 2003, and you're talking with. The main important thing is if someone presses a phone for help and they're in a say a large office building again with like 18, 20 elevators. I'm at 555, Brickell. Okay, well, great. They get to 555 Brickell, and how many elevators are there? How many elevators are down? That's why it's important to know where the firefighter emergency services can get there to help them out. Looking into call for the responder phone to test the on-site emergency responder ability to call directly back to the elevators without intentional delay. It's generally located in the guard station, main egress levels, or fire control. These are called lobby phones in the code. You'll see the reference to it, but also master stations is what you refer to them as. These can be usually located in a FACP room, the fire and command center. So once you go in there, that should be able to connect to the actual phone inside the elevator without delay, and then they become priority. Make sure that the emergency personnel can actually communicate with the people inside of the cab when they need that. One of the things I wanted to go into here, since we've kind of gone over a 30,000 foot view of the code, how the assessment of it is, kind of give some real world scenarios. Real world scenarios, what's an installation look like from us from King Street? I can't tell how every company and everybody does it. So I can kind of give you what an installation looks like from how it's going to be looked at inside of, the real buildings and the real worlds. So we have locations that, no two machine rooms are the same, multiple generations of equipment, often stacked on a wall, abandoned, unlabeled, undocumented wire and control. Taking a look at this system here that you're seeing, you see that this location here has some mix of fiber optic equipment, some old alarm systems that's tied into there. It's kind of a hodgepodge. You don't know what you're looking at, and it's sometimes pretty rough shape. Got one here sitting beside an electrical panel. great thing, as long as you're maintaining your items like Tyler was talking about, that have a fire explosion. Well, now your fiber optic, your telephone line, everything's going down. So everything kind of ties together. You can also see on the left a ton of the old fiber boxes on here, which are fiber phone lines on the left-hand side, and also a mix of a voice over IP system, but wires hanging everywhere, and the connections are just in different places. Got kind of a nice, installing into legacy systems. A decade-old punch block still in service, modern devices with interface for legacy infrastructure. Wiring standards often no longer exist. What you see here is to the left, a whole bunch of wire connections. Some of them may be working, some of them may not. You've got a tie-in thing over here. You've got a cable modem on the right. You've got the alarm systems down here on the bottom side. And then with the King 3 system in the center, we try to make sure that all of our installs are good and clean and proper, that everything's going to work the way it should. Unexpected installation locations. You never know where these things are going to be. This is a broom closet, cleaning supplies, everything else sitting here. You don't know where each building, the age of the installation depends on where it's at, where the location, but this also kind of gives back to that explanation of the ease of installation for cellular compared to like a hardline copper. It can be in a closet with an outlet. That's all you need to where that cellular technology puts us at that ability for it. Equipment installed in rarely ideal locations, limited space, lighting. Phone still works 24/7. So the dependability of your phone is the main thing you need to do. Clean installations, power, data, signal cables. This was like just standard network room. Accurate tone, tracing prevents cross connection errors. Final installation must be clean and serviceable. Making sure that when you go in there, you'll be able to service the unit. It's accessible to you. Those are the things you need to make sure. Not only if Kings 3 walks in there with you or anybody else, make sure that it's done. Have them walk you through the location. Have them say, hey, look, where's this thing installed? Make sure this thing's working properly and got access to it. Shared in electrical rooms and meter rooms, going back to the same thing. All these tie in together. Shared electrical rooms and meter spaces, coordinating. You have all kinds of things from people that's got cords strung and everything else. So it's a hodgepodge. Kind of a quick going over with Kings 3 how our devices work. We're simple design, clear terminations, supports dry contacts, external indicators, designed for real world installation. We design and build our own boards. So having a system, this is the reference to what we were talking about, the consolidation systems, where you see this has got a total of 8 phones on this system. And then we have a master station phone tied into it as well. All these units come in with a battery backup. 4-hour battery backup on ours. It also sends out a trickle charge, keeps that battery charged for 2 to 5 years on a normal basis for us. But knowing how the system works, how the functionality of your phone system, whether, like I said, whether it be Kings 3 or anyone else, make sure that understanding is there so that you're not dependent on someone else to be the knowledge base for you. Why this matters: emergency phones must work on the first call every time. Emergency phones are built for real world buildings, not perfect ones. Tech experience, equipment design, reliability is one of the things you're always looking at. Recommended minimum standards that you must go to that we recommend for everybody on it. For effective elevator monitoring designed to help navigate the niche elevator communication code, as well as provide specifications for performance and safety, operates it as best practice to measure an existing solution against or evaluating new solutions. Take a look at your building infrastructure, see what's best for you, see what is the best system that you need, whether it be the cellular, your own infrastructure, whichever, with us, we'll work with whichever we do. We always push for cellular because it's the most recommended and most reliable that we've dealt with. Recommended minimum standards: UL list UL 827 compliant monitoring. Monitoring facilities must be UL 827 requirements, including redundant powers, communication, and data system designed for continuous uninterrupted operational during emergencies. Think of this as when you call into a site and power is out in the location. As I was talking to Miss Jessie before, we were kind of comparing our areas we live in with the bays there, and I live in Florida. We deal with a lot of hurricanes, and hurricanes, when they go out, you can lose power for 10 hours at a time. I mean, the days or whichever that runs off emergency generators or backups. So making sure that how the system is working, how your redundant power, Kings 3 with our location in Dallas, Texas, up in Coppell, we have 3 generators set up for it. Our building operates, and we have to answer that question answer the phones 24/7, 365. And for some odd reason, if that building goes down, we have an entire another facility and that it rolls over to automatically. That's where that UL 8027 comes into. Insurance protection, monitoring service providers, maintains general liability, air emissions, umbrella covers, the liability extend, additional insured status for elevator owner. When you have this type of protection and you have the ability laid in behind the footwork behind you, it helps out. Emergency dispatch monitoring service can provide direct dispatch to geographical appropriate local emergency response agencies, include police, fire, and EMS. Think of it as when the emergency happens, if they can get out to the right services and get you the help you need, that's going to be important. Event notification, make sure that if something goes down, the power goes down, emergency battery goes off, something along that line. Timestamp recordings. With Kings 3, we record all of our data and voice, and now the video is all recorded. We keep that stuff laid back in perpetuity. And language and translation. As we know, you live in California and San Francisco, great tourist area. I live in Florida. We have a lot of different, melting pots over here from Orlando, the Tampa area. Everybody's got to go see Disney, and everybody's got to go see Mickey. So every version of language that you can imagine. We haven't had one stump us yet. Ours currently right now translates about 175 different languages. So we don't have any problems with that. So we're able to help that out with any type. And that pretty much takes care of my presentation. I've got my email address and everything here. And as Miss Jessie here, I'll be here to take any questions and all that stuff for it and help out with anything that you need.
Thank you, Don. And I think we do have a few questions in the chat that came from both presentations. So when we have from Harry or Harold, I believe this one was during Tyler's presentation. Do the insurance companies have an age out time for main electrical or MCC panels, say 10 years or 20 years?
So to answer that question, it all depends on the make and model. So as we're getting more exposed to electrical explosions and failure points, certain manufacturing, they're no longer UL listing the pieces of equipment. So those are the ones that insurance, they're not too savvy on what's going on. They're more fear tactic driven of doom and gloom of, oh, it's this square D panel has to go offline. No, it's this square D panel, this model. It's not that model. So it's more of, I've been working with several insurance agencies because they want me to go into their facilities and audit them. So I've been more of educating and doing classes with them also, so they understand what NFPA 70B requires. So, but that doesn't really apply to 10. You could have equipment that's 40, 50 years old and it's still, as long as it's been serviced and maintained and has a record, data sheets, you're good to go to keep the use of it.
Perfect. And Harold, does that answer your question, or did anyone have any follow-ups to that one?
He's muted. I know he put a thumbs up, but he's muted. Or sound wasn't coming through. If he's like me, you don't use Zoom very often, and the microphone changes sometimes. That's what I've had on mine. It has a tendency to drift to somewhere else. So.
Okay, and then I think there was another question in the chat from Phil, and I think this was during Dawn's presentation. Are there standardized audio and video elevator systems so we can change vendors if need be? I'm assuming i.e. Otis to TKE systems. I do see that Shelby.
Yeah. They said that there was, and with the VMS system, they said that Shelby said billing each system VMS solution is a case-by-case situation. We're happy to call on site for deeper Basically, the best description of this, you think of it right now, your main word that you want to focus on being in facilities with it is non-proprietary. You currently have that situation for not only controller systems, say motion control, which is California based, so we'll give that one good yell. EC, elevator controls, motion control, those type systems are out there. Same with phones. Kings 3 is a non-proprietary system. We maintain our own equipment. We supply that. We operate our services, but you also have, different companies from Brath, WordTech, KTech. There's a whole plenty that you can specify from your elevator company. Make sure get ahead of it in your bidding process. Get ahead of that first. Make sure that it's a system that's non-proprietary that can be used with any type of elevator.
Perfect. Phil, did that answer your question? And did we have any follow-up questions on that one? Perfect. And then I will just open it up to anyone on the call right now. If there's any questions that you have, either for both Dawn and Tyler or specific questions in regards to each of their presentations, feel free to just unmute yourself or drop it in the chat as well.
Hey, Dawn, this
Yes,
is
sir.
Toby. So I saw in your drawing that on one of those Kings 3 units, you've got I think there's like four phone lines connected to each set of contacts inside the panel. And I think
Correct.
you had a total of 8 phones and then I think a master unit all in
Yes, sir.
one unit. So can you could all four of those lines be calling out at the same time on that
Yes.
panel? Okay.
Yes, that's why we limit it to 8. When you come
Uh-huh.
into our systems, like I said, we design and build our own. For us to be the registration on there, you have to have a certain amount of voltage is carried. It's more about the battery is what it takes. It has to have that much battery. If all 8 phones on that one, for us, it's called an M92. Our standard we have usually does like 4 phones.
Mhm.
So that's what it is. It depends on the length of the time for the battery. It's really how many phones we can run off one system and maintain the 2.27 compliance.
Got it. So, yeah, we have a system in a Kings 3 system now. So that's why you would recommend making multiple calls at once to kind of
Right.
test that. Yeah.
Same thing with you have a lot of times the companies behind them or in the past may have had 2 or 3 elevators sharing one line. So if you press the button in elevator 1, you go to elevator 3. Now elevator 1 picked up, elevator 3 is dead. So
Yeah.
what's going to happen to the person in elevator 3? No communication, and it
Yeah.
doesn't read. That's why I said make sure that it functions as it should.
And one more follow-up question. So I know the operators are there 24/7 and they can talk back to the if it's a trapped passenger in the elevator. Is there a way that Kings 3 allows like us as an end user to contact the person in the elevator cab?
That would be the best one for the master station. It's on site. You
Okay.
can walk in at that point anytime, say emergency service or yourself. If you're inside of there, someone stuck in elevator 2, Kings 3 calls and says, "Hey, look, somebody stuck in elevator number 2." You walk to your communication system, you pick up. It does not disconnect Kings 3. Kings 3 stays on, but when you pick that master station up, you become the primary. That primary communication now is in your hands, so Kings 3 could stay on the line or disconnect, but your communication with them would still be there. And
Cool.
it has functions to call right back into that unit that called out.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
And then anyone else have any questions for Dawn and Tyler? Yes, great question, Toby.
Well, I guess
Okay.
for Tyler, one last one. Sorry, while I'm on a roll here. So with these condition assessments, I'm familiar with it. I kind of got disrupted when you were talking about the different conditions. Obviously, I think there's like condition 1, 2, and 3, and that kind of dictates how frequently you then need to perform your maintenance tasks. Can you tell me a little more about the differences? Like if you walked into an electrical room and you saw like an example of something that was really bad or something that was pretty good, could you?
So pretty much that's the one through three assessment is pretty much based off the location, what the tenant is using, and the condition of the equipment. So those are assessments. So that's why I said category 2 is mostly what you guys are dealing with. It's commercial high rise. It's pretty standard. So a lot of stuff gets checked. The reason we had conditions 3 and 1 is because residential, a lot of high rises are getting converted to residential. So now the frequency of the maintenance is not as required as critical as commercial high rises because they're using less load for the system. It's pretty light. And then condition 3, we've been getting a lot of manufacturing electrical fires because they're trying to follow the NFPA standard of every 3-year cycle maintenance, but they're actually finding out they're running at 80 to 90% load capacity, which exceeds what the utilities are providing for them. And equipment's literally blowing up within 6 months time frame. So that's why they want the visuals every 6 months. And then once a year, full power down, testing everything out because they practically redline their entire system. So that's where the variations come in. And that's usually an assessment when you guys come to your locations.
Cool. Yeah, yeah. So I guess as a rule of thumb, you could, unless you were like really pushing it, you could assume that you're at a condition 2, and then kind of use that 70B chart to kind of dictate your maintenance intervals.
Yes. So,
Okay.
and pretty much our infrared, what you've seen our infrared reports, we do the full breakdown of assessment to kind of give you guys that current, past due, and coming due. So we try to really paint that picture for you guys, so it's just really transparent and easy to navigate.
Cool. Yeah, one thing that came up recently, our company has some standards for compliance, and one of them was like ground fault testing, and it said annually, and I was like, that means you gotta shut everything down once a year. I was like, that's a chief engineer's worst nightmare. So that's probably not
That's not
correct.
applicable. It's just every 3 years. Yeah.
Awesome.
That's why I said that insurances, they got the scare tactic of like, oh, NFPA 70B just now mandated everything. So now I got to condemn all my properties. You guys need to be compliant or we're dropping you. And it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. It's slow to roll. So we've been doing a lot of training with them because they're just very scare tactic lately.
Yeah. Awesome. So we'll lean on you guys to, when we get those reports to get some guidance on how to proceed.
Absolutely.
Thanks a lot.
Not a problem, sir.
And then it looks like we have one more question for you, Tyler. I want to be aware of everyone's time. So this one came from Keenan in the chat. I know 5 years is generally considered an acceptable time frame for a shutdown inspection, but every 3 years is recommended. Have you ever experienced pushback from an insurance company after an incident where they blamed equipment failure or property damage on the decision to inspect every 5 years instead of 3?
I haven't gotten much pushback on that. I do know that because the old NFPA 70B standard was mandated every 5 years to do your testing, and then it was the recommendation every 3 years. But now that we just rolled out the newer one and starting to get pressed a little harder, it's now becoming the 3-year standard. And so insurances, you're getting a lot of in between. Some are saying that you need to do 3 years, and some are still following the old code of 5 years. So it's just good practice to just be on top of the 3 years, like the example I gave earlier with that electrical fire. It was a huge headquarters. I mean, complete fire, evacuated the building, drained the fire sprinkler system. It was catastrophe. And I went and met with insurance the week later, and they tried to put blame back on ownership and management. And I had a stack of documentation for like 8 years of testing and trending and showed them, no, they were on top of their maintenance. This was a water leak, so you guys need to flip the bill, which was a very expensive bill. Hopefully that answered your question. Okay.
Sorry, this is Lucinda. So, I was just thinking as you're saying that with the codes, is that is that California? Is it just San Francisco? Just wherever? Like, is it
national? Yeah, that's national code.
National. Every 3 years, national.
Every 3 years, yes.
Yikes. Okay. Because PG&E is also charging their crazy rates for shutdowns.
Very expensive, yes.
Okay.
Okay. I did just get really quickly a couple last questions for Dawn. It's a two-parter from Rob, who does work for Kingsley as well, but he asks, are the help phones in the elevators normally covered under the elevator maintenance contract? And two, what is the average cost to replace those phones?
Generally, going back to this, a lot of the times the maintenance for the elevators aren't covered. They have or charge you for the replacement for it. And then as far as the normal cost, anywhere between 500 to 2,000 is kind of the average what we see for those replacements on it.
Perfect. And then I do see that we are approaching 2 p.m. So if anyone does have any other questions, feel free to direct them towards me and I can get you in touch with either Tyler or Dawn, or if you have questions for both, I can let them know as well. I will get this meeting recording posted up on our online learning center as well as our YouTube channel. And once that's up, I'll send everyone who attended today the follow-up links to those. Thank you again, everyone, and thank you both to Tyler and Dawn for the amazing presentations today.
Thank you both.
Thank
Nice
you, guys.
meeting you all.
Thanks,
You all
guys.
have a
Really
good day.
appreciate it.
Nice
Thank
meeting you guys.
you.
Yeah.
Have a great rest of your day, everyone.
Thanks,
You too.
guys.